Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make jam tarts, and this is what they look like. As you can see, I've made them in miniature, so you get 2 delicious bites of pastry and jam. And you can use whatever jam you like. I'm using a raspberry jam here. So the first thing we're going to do is make our pastry. Now I'm going to use a pastry that's kind of like a sugar cookie in taste and texture. But really, you could use any pastry here for jam tarts. You know, your favorite pie pastry or shortbread crust. So if you have a stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment. You could use a hand mixer, or really, you could just use a large bowl with a wooden spoon for this. And you will need 10 tablespoons, which is 140 grams of butter, and have that at room temperature. Try to use a good quality butter so you get a real nice buttery flavor in your pastry. And I like to use, as you know, I like to use unsalted butter because I like the flavor better, but you could use salted if that's what you prefer. So let's put that in there. And then I'm just going to beat this just to soften it up and get it nice and smooth. Okay. And as I always say, I mean, just scrape the bottom and the sides of your bowl as much as you need to make sure everything gets mixed together. And so now we need some sugar. I'm adding a half a cup, 100 grams of granulated white sugar. And then I'm just going to beat this on medium-high speed for probably a couple of minutes, just until everything's mixed together and you get a little bit of air in there and make it nice and light and fluffy. Okay, that looks good. As you can see, just get a little air in there. Everything's all nice and mixed together. So now we're going to add 1 large egg, and again, have that at room temperature because it mixes in much more easier if your ingredients are at room temperature. And then for flavoring, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Now if you wanted, I mean, you could change this up. You could add a little bit, like maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of pure almond extract if you would prefer an almond flavor. You could also add some the zest of a lemon or a orange or even a lime. Make sure zest means the outer skin of the citrus fruit. And so now I'm just going to beat this in. Pretty good. If you, sometimes you'll notice, and with this, I'm noticing here, when you add your egg, you can get a little bit of curdling. Don't worry about that. You can mix it a little longer, or once you add your dry ingredients, it'll just smooth it right out. Just going to beat that just a touch more. That looks good. Okay, so now our dry ingredients. In a separate bowl, I have 2 cups, that's 260 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. And I'm adding about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. If you did use salted butter, then I would probably just leave out that salt. And just a little bit of baking powder to make the pastry a little lighter. It's a 1/2 teaspoon baking powder. And then, I mean, you could sift it, or I'm just using a wire whisk. You want to make sure that salt and the baking powder is mixed into the flour. And then I'm just going to add it to our batter. And as always, when you first start your mixer, do it on low speeds. You don't want that flour all coming up in your face. And I'm just going to beat it until it's all mixed together. Okay, that looks good. not too hard to do. So now what we're going to do, just going to take all our pastry, put it on the counter here. Roll it into a ball. So now, I like to divide it in half because we're going to get, if you're going to make miniature, which we're going to here, you get about maybe 30, 32, somewhere in there. So I like to work with half of the pastry at a time, makes it a little easier. So I'm just going to roughly, I mean, you could use your scale and divide it in half, but it really doesn't have to be equal. And then, like, some people, what they like to do is take their pastry, wrap it in plastic wrap, and chill it, and then roll it out, because we are going to use a cookie cutter to cut out our rounds. But what I like to do, kind of save a step, is I'm going to roll it out right now, because it is pretty firm. It's firm enough to roll out before I chill it, and then I kind of save a step. So I just take 2 pieces of parchment. You could take wax paper, probably even plastic wrap if that's all you have. And then I'm just flattening this. And then take your second piece of parchment, put it on top, and then take your rolling pin and just roll it out. As you can see, it's rolling out pretty easily. And we want to pretty thin, maybe a 1/8 of an inch, just really thin. And you might want to, as you're rolling, if you see it's getting kind of creases in your paper, just kind of lift it. You can also turn it and, lift it. It's looking pretty good. Now, when you're rolling, as you can see, I keep turning it. And then what I like to do, because you want kind of an even thickness, not really, because if you don't, sometimes it gets thicker in the center than at the end. I just, if you just run your hand over here, you can kind of feel the thickness and whether it's even or not. And then you can just, if it's too thick in the center, you can just roll a little more. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now what I'm going to do is we need to chill it because it's too soft for us to cut out our rounds right now. So I just take a baking sheet and like so, and I'm just going to put this in the fridge. Now you want it quite firm so we can cut out our rounds. So I would say probably an hour, maybe 2. Actually, you could just put it in your fridge and let it chill overnight if you want to do it in 2 stages. So I'm going to put this in the fridge. I'm going to roll out my other one, and when we come back, we will cut out our rounds. Okay, so now we're ready to cut out our rounds. As you can see here, I have already started. So you need a miniature muffin pan. I'm using 24, and then I'll have to use another one to finish off. And then you take a round. Now what you want, depending on, tart pans can be a little different. This is about 2.5 inch. So what you're doing is just take your round, put it over top. You want a little more, bigger than the round of here. It's really just try it and see if there's enough pastry. And then you just cut it out. I'm using actually, as you can see, a fluted pastry cutter here. And then peel it off and then fit it in. Now sometimes when you're trying to fit it in, if your pastry rips, that can happen if it's too cold, too warm. And if it does, don't worry about it. So as you see, I just fitted it in there. If you did, and like actually in this one, I did have a little bit of ripping. So I just take a little piece of pastry and just fit it into there and just pat it in to fill up the crack. Because you're going to put jam in there, so no one's going to notice anyways. So there. So we have 24 there. As you can see, I have a little more pastry. If you only have one pan, just bake off these ones, and then when they cool, you can finish off with the rest of your pastry. And then jam. You can use homemade or store-bought. You can use really any flavor you want. I'm actually today using a raspberry jam. It is homemade. There is a recipe along with the video on the site for raspberry jam if that's what you want. But really any, like I said, or you could use a couple different types. Fill half of them with raspberry and apricot or whatever you like. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can pipe it, your jam, which I like to do, and I just put it in like either a pastry bag, or you could just use a freezer bag. And then just put a bunch in, and then just take, I'm going to cut off the end. The other way I'll also show is just take your jam and use 2 spoons and just scoop it in. A little more time consuming, but it still works. And I'm just going to cut the end off here. And then what you want to do, I find about 3/4 full, because you want to leave a little room at the top just in case your jam starts, as it bakes, it might start to bubble, and you don't want it bubbling over the top. And I like to see lots of pastry, so just like that. Okay, and the last one here. Okay, that looks good. So now, I think I forgot to say, but preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 degrees Celsius. So now what we're going to do is bake our tarts for about 12 to 14 minutes. Really depends on your oven and, of course, the size of the tarts you're making. But what you're looking for is the edges of your pastry to turn a beautiful golden brown. Okay, our jam tarts are done. Aren't they gorgeous looking? They're so cute. So now what I'm going to do is just cool them on a wire rack until they're, for about at least 10 minutes. And then what you can do is just take like either a knife or one of these little offset spatulas and then just go down. Especially if you've used a non-stick miniature tart pan, it makes it really easy. So now, I made these before, and how do you serve them? Well, I actually like them just like this. I just think they look so cute. But you could put, I have a little, some ground almonds, any type of nut. You could just sprinkle that over the top to finish them off. It's kind of cute. You could take a little melted chocolate or grated chocolate. If you want to match, have a berry, like the raspberry, match the raspberry jam, just put on top like that. Looks kind of cute. Or what I have here is some Devon cream, or you could use whipping cream, and you could just you could pipe it, or just put a little jam, cream, and pastry. I mean, what's better than that? And I think that's one I'm going to try. So good. You have the crisp, sweet pastry, and then you have that, depending on the flavor of your jam, and then, of course, a little cream on top. These will last, quite a few days. And, they're just perfect for your family, great for a buffet. Try them and enjoy. Until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.